Thanks, Thor. 8:02. It's quiet out there now, but strong winds brought down trees and branches onto power lines overnight. Around 10,000 BC Hydro customers were in the dark. Hardest hit areas included Langley, Maple Ridge, and Port Coquitlam. And this was the scene in Vancouver yesterday. Drivers having to brave huge puddles that formed because of clogged drains. BC Hydro crews have taken care of most of the outages. About 1,000 still remain without power this morning. And while a rainfall warning has ended for the Lower Mainland, it does remain in place for the Fraser Valley. 3 people have been taken to hospital with serious injuries after a bus crash north of Prince George. RCMP say the bus slid off Highway 97 and ended up on its side. It was carrying 40 people at the time. 16 were taken to hospital in total. The crash is being investigated. Police say the roads were very slippery. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he won't interfere if Surrey decides to switch from the light rail to SkyTrain. Surrey's incoming mayor, Doug McCallum, has promised to scrap plans for the LRT, raising questions about how much more this project could cost. Trudeau says he would support whatever option was preferred, but didn't say if the federal government would consider putting more money towards the SkyTrain expansion. TransLink has previously estimated a SkyTrain extension would cost $2.9 billion. McCallum has repeatedly promised to expand SkyTrain in Surrey for the same cost as LRT. It's almost an annual tradition. We get a little bit of snow and the buses and SkyTrain run into trouble. TransLink says it's ready for winter, though. Tom Walsh has details.
We review our performance every year. We look for best practices, we look for lessons learned, and we change our plan.
With winter just around the corner, TransLink is preparing for snow and adverse weather conditions. 2 years ago, Metro Vancouver saw a wild winter that prompted huge delays on transit and caught much of the city off guard. Now Coast Mountain Bus Company is working with cities across the region to prepare for what could be another bad winter.
We've been meeting with cities across the region to establish priority snow clearing corridors. These are the streets that are cleared first and often to allow our buses access to our customers.
Buses will also use tyre socks along certain routes. These include Burnaby Mountain as well as routes to SFU. This year they'll also be used for parts of the Lytton Valley and Grouse Mountain. Meanwhile, on the SkyTrain, specialised heaters are used to melt snow along the tracks.
So we have switch heaters that essentially heat up the ice that drops into the switch mechanism and melts the buildup. They're hot enough that they will melt any ice and allow the switch to move freely.
Over 500,000 people use the SkyTrain every day. During heavy snowfall, trains will run throughout the night to keep tracks clear. In the meantime, TransLink is asking customers to know before you go by checking their website and social media for any possible delays. In Vancouver, Tom Walsh, City News.
Premier John Horgan says the province has no intention of changing daylight saving time. As David Zura explains, many still hope to change his mind.
It seems like an old tradition that just needs to die.
Daylight saving time officially ends this weekend, which means we get an extra hour of sleep on Sunday morning. I, for one, savor the extra hour in November and just as quickly shake my fist when we lose it in March. The European Union has just announced it's moving along with legislation that could end the practice by 2021. And there's a fair bit of support to scrap it here in Canada.
And we just keep talking about it. I mean, twice a year, we keep talking about this over and over and over again. And at some point, someone's just going to have to be a leader and take the initiative to make that decision.
Tara Holmes is with Stop the Time Change. It's a small group in BC campaigning for the province to leave our clocks alone.
It's exactly 3 years that we started this. We thought it would take us a year to get 20,000 signatures on our petition, and it took us 3 months to get 30,000.
Daylight saving has been used in Canada for roughly a century and was originally enacted to save energy and allow for better use of the daylight hours. But critics say bumping our clocks around may be coming at a price.
Ample evidence to show that it's detrimental to mental health, physical health. It's dangerous. The accidents increase after we fall back.
According to BC's auto insurance provider, the biggest impact of setting our clocks back is its effects on skills like concentration, alertness behind the wheel, and reaction time to potential hazards.
To get rid of it or to keep it? What's your preference?
Get rid of it.
I don't see the point of it at this point.
The change in time each time is actually a huge disruption to how I feel and lots of people feel.
Now, how about that extra hour of sleep, though, come November? That's pretty sweet, though, isn't it?
Go to bed now early. That's what I say.
Not worth the extra hour of sleep.
I also ran a little informal Twitter poll. 65% voted to scrap it, while a sizable minority, 35%, said they'd rather keep it. In the meantime, a handful of towns in British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, as well as the province of Saskatchewan, have already done away with daylight saving time. Whether the rest of Canada will follow suit remains to be seen. In Vancouver, David Zura, City News.
As a pedestrian, I know that I will never win in a confrontation with a vehicle or a bicycle.
And as we get ready to turn our clocks back this weekend, Vancouver police say it's better to be seen and safe than sorry. ICBC says pedestrians make up 60% of all fatal collisions. Most crashes happen between now and the winter months. 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. is considered to be the most dangerous time on our roads.
Watch for drivers turning left or right through the crosswalk because they may be more focused on looking for oncoming traffic than looking for you.
Vancouver police are also handing out reflective gear at transit hubs to help make pedestrians and cyclists more visible on our roadways. Well, aging out of foster care is often a huge hurdle in young lives already full of challenges. Easing that transition is the goal of One BC organization.
So in here, this is our Wednesday workshop space where essential skills happen.
Braden Chapelis considers Aunt Leah's place his second home. Having grown up in foster homes, he's successfully transitioning into adulthood. The 20-year-old is now getting an education, living on his own and working part-time at the organization he says made it all possible.
I just came to a point when I was 17 and I was ready to graduate high school and I wanted to live on my own, and so I connected with a social worker and got connected with Aunt Leah's, where I got all the life skills training and I got housing and I was able to, have that stability continue.
For the last 30 years, Aunt Leah's Place has helped foster youth transition into adult life, making sure they have housing options, emotional support, and educational guidance. But as the organization celebrates its third decade, the struggle is keeping up with the influx of kids aging out of care.
We know that for young adults in Canada, fully 60% of them who are between the ages of 20 and 24, they're living at home, right? That says a lot about the economy, and it says a lot about those extra supports and subsidies that average families give their kids.
Most foster kids in BC haven't experienced any form of stabilization. When they turn 19, approximately 1,000 youth lose government support, forcing them to live on the streets, witnessing the opioid crisis firsthand. According to Metro Vancouver's latest youth homeless count, 55% of the nearly 700 youth were foster kids.
And they asked those individuals, why did you experience homelessness? And fully 11% of them, so 1 in 10, are saying it was when I aged out. That was a primary cause of it.
So this is where all of our events are for the month.
The province has increased funding for the agreements with the Young Adults program. Braden now qualifies for AYA, which helps cover some of the costs of his tuition and rent.
That's only $12.50, and SPC in Vancouver rent is much higher than that. So it's being able to pay your bills and being able to eat healthy and being able to get to school and maintain good grades. And I mean, we're at a crisis period where you're not able to do that.
Speaking on behalf of Aunt Leah's, Braden says more comprehensive support is needed. A better approach for an already marginalized population struggling to find their place. In New Westminster, Mary Cranston, City News. Well, if you appreciate a fine scotch or a good bottle of rum, this event is for you. Preparations are underway for this year's annual premium spirits release at several BC liquor stores. It's always a big deal at the main store in Vancouver's Oak Ridge neighborhood. Tomorrow morning, more than 130 products will go on sale, including rare bourbons, vodkas, and rums. There are also a variety of whiskeys from around the world, but there's always at least one special bottle. This year, it's a scotch that will set you back more than $30,000.
So we had the Bowmore in 1966, but there's only 74 bottles produced for the whole world. So it's extremely rare. And you think about how old that whiskey is. So by the time that it finishes aging, there's a minute amount of whiskey left in that barrel, so that's why there's so little. And this is extremely collectible. So we put it now to a raffle system, so it opens it up to more people to have an opportunity to purchase that bottle.
8:11, time for some celebrations. Here are Riaz and Michael.